Picking up a bottle of sweetened soy milk, Weibo ran his phone across the scanner and heard a satisfying beep followed by a brief message that flashed across the screen of his phone.
Thank you for your patronage, Mr. Zhang.
Just as he was about to leave the shop, his phone started ringing, a sound quickly echoed by every other mobile phone within the shop, followed by a flashing message that suddenly appeared on every display surface with an internet connection.
Emergency, emergency. Make your way to the closest emergency shelter immediately. Make your way to the closest emergency shelter immediately.
As the message kept repeating itself, Weibo found himself swept out of the shop by the surge of fleeing customers. Once outside, he found the streets in utter chaos, as thousands of frightened people ran around in a panic searching for safety. Somebody to his right knocked down a glass statue, forcing him to leap onto an upturned public bin to avoid having his legs shredded by the shattering glass. From his elevated position, he had a moment of peace as the sea of people flowed around him, and he took the opportunity to look upwards as he heard something break the sound barrier from above. A streak of darkness cut across the clear blue sky like a monstrous claw and hurtled towards a nearby skyscraper. The protective magic woven into the building's foundations flared up, and a barrier briefly appeared, before shattering like glass, overwhelmed by the devastating impact. Like a deer caught in the headlights, Weibo froze, his mind unable to comprehend what was going on even as a rain of deadly debris was about to fall on him.
Freeze.
Although his body was frozen, his senses were still active as he perceived everything around him was in the same suspended state, from the fleeing people to the falling debris. Everything, as far as he could tell, had stopped the exact same moment the voice had spoken. It was as if the very laws of time had to obey the command. Looking up, Weibo saw golden threads streaming downwards, which draped over the frozen city like the hair of a celestial maiden. As one of the threads fell on Weibo, he was immediately enveloped by a golden light that overwhelmed his senses and left him unable to perceive anything, not even himself.
Move.
Said the voice, and Weibo came back to his senses, finding himself inside one of the city's emergency shelters and staring at a massive display screen showing images from the drones monitoring the city above. The screen showed the streets devastated by the fallen skyscraper, with a solitary gigantic figure crouching amidst the chaos. Larger than the surrounding buildings, the figure was dressed in golden armor that shone like a miniature sun, whilst over his shoulder was slung a radiant staff that dazzled like captured lightning. The weapon alone told Weibo who the Colossus was, and he did not need to look at the handsome simian face to know that he was looking at Sun Wukong. The great sage had taken on the avatar of his time before achieving Buddhahood, indicating that he was expecting violence, something the enlightened status of his final form would not have permitted. The picture on the screen changed as the image from another drone appeared, and Weibo felt his awe change to horror. A figure as large as the great sage lifted itself out of a deep chasm and stared directly at the drone as if knowing that it was being observed. Its shape could be generously called humanoid, yet its face was anything but human. With a skull-like complexion, a mouth full of jagged black teeth, and a crown of demonic antlers, it was the embodiment of every monster ever envisioned in humanity's collective nightmares. Rising to its full gigantic height, the creature turned in the direction of the great sage and let out a monstrous roar that was clearly a challenge. Someone took Weibo's hand, and looking down, he saw a slender feminine hand locked in his. Looking up, he saw the face of Susan Christie. They went to the same university together, and she was a foreign exchange student, with her exotic chestnut hair and green-gray eyes, making her stand out amongst the black hair and brown eyes of the native students. Staring into those eyes, Weibo could see the fear in them, so he gave her hand a reassuring squeeze, receiving a grateful smile in return. From the corners of their eyes, they saw the screen flicker, and turned back to see the scene change again. This time it showed a panoramic view of the city, with the great sage and the monstrous creature standing on opposite sides of the screen. With a casual ease, the great sage started walking forwards, his golden staff held casually in his hand, his steps leaving no trace on the ground. Twin streams of sickly green light shot out of the monster's eyes, slithering towards the great sage, like a pair of sinister snakes, blackening the ground where their shadows fell. Covering the distance between the combatants with devastating speed, the streams of light slammed into the great sage. Wukong's imperishable body started glowing, cocooning him in a golden light that shattered the sickly green streams on contact. More streams of light slammed into the radiant great sage to little effect, and did nothing to slow his steady progress. As the great sage reached the midway point on the screen, the streams of green light stopped. The great sage also stopped as if waiting for his opponent to make the next move. For a moment the two titans just stood there staring at each other. Suddenly the monster began to expand, inflating like a massive frog as it swelled up with sickly green magic. The prelude to a big attack was obvious, and Weibo braced himself. Just as the build-up of power reached its peak, a shaft of sunlight shot out from the great sage, slamming into the forehead of the monster and punching straight through the back of its head before stretching out into the horizon. It took a moment for the drones to fully capture what was happening, and when they did they showed the great sage's staff impaling the monster's head. The monstrous form of the beast collapsed immediately, like a nightmare dissipated by the morning light. The divine staff returned to its original size, and the great sage turned to look straight into the drone recording him, his sparkling golden eyes looking directly at Weibo. Feeling a tingling sensation in his right hand, he looked down to see a single lock of golden hair held between his fingers.